Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome. You have tuned in to episode number 574 of the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. This is Linux in the Ham Shack, and this is our short topics edition, so thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. And before we get into our topics for tonight, we'll introduce ourselves, as we often do, even though the intro does it for us. Yeah, Bill thinks we need to do it for completeness sake. But anyway, for the on assignment, Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right. Well, that's who's here for tonight, and I guess we should just jump right into it. We don't have a lead topic for the evening, although how far away is Hamvention now? 2 months? 2 months?
2 months.
Yeah, seems like it's always upcoming.
Yeah, it's coming sooner than you think, the way time flies.
Absolutely. And I've noticed the time seems to go faster and faster, and today is the first day of daylight savings, so we get a little bit extra daylight, which is nice. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's talk about some amateur radio topics, and Bill's going to get us caught up with the first one.
Yeah, there's a call for applications for the YOTA summer camp in France. It's a great honor to announce the YOTA. This is not us, obviously. This is the Ham YOTA website. It's our great honor to announce the YOTA Summer Camp 2025 applications are open. We are grateful to have REF aboard in the organization this 13th edition in France. The event itself will be held from the 18th to the 25th of August, 2025 in the town of Jamville, France, or Paris. Sorry, Jamville, Paris. So, must be a suburb. Once again, it is possible to host ambitious youngsters from around IARU Region 1, including guest teams from Regions 2 and 3. Contact your local member society for more info on joining the camp. And this came to us from the Ham YOTA.
YOTA.
YOTA, YOTA.
How come you didn't have the AI bot sort of summarize this for you?
I thought it was too short to summarize.
Well, you could have had it expand it for you.
Yeah, I probably could have used some more expansion and stuff like that. It's a light news week for amateur radio, so we had to go into the cockles of the internet and find this stuff.
That sounds dirty. Yeah, obviously we're talking about some timed events, which we don't normally do. That usually only happens when there's nothing of substance. So,
yeah. Hence the next topic,
right? Also related to upcoming event, the AI, the AI. No, somebody has something on the brain, right? the IARU YOTA IARU. Never mind, that doesn't work.
No.
IARU celebrates centenary of 100 years. I mean, that's even redundant. It's like,
well, I know that's just for the people that don't know what centenary means.
I suppose it's like even when we're trying to expand, it's just redundancy.
Yeah.
The IARU is celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2025 with the theme "A Century of Connections," celebrating 100 years of amateur radio innovation, community, and advocacy. In April 2025, be on the lookout for many stations across the globe sporting special event call signs for the celebration. In the UK, we have GB0 YARU. In Luxembourg, LX100 YARU. And wow, look at Belgium.
Yeah, they're just going crazy.
Yeah.
I think they're doing sort of like the POTA, kind of the national thing, like we did the WA1AW stroke 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, blah,
Right.
blah, blah.
I think basically you just look for call signs with 100 in them. except for the UK station, which decided to be different.
Yeah.
So look for 100 or YOTA in your waterfall, or as it reaches your brain from your ears, however it is that you happen to be working your radio on that particular day. And it says here that there will be many other stations as well. So, and this came from the YOTA, the Rizgaba, the Ball, BAL, and lots of other places because, it's a big thing. So are there any, I assume there's like certificates and things that you can acquire if you work all these stations?
Yeah, I'm assuming there is probably per each area and stuff like that, and like anything that's sort of gamified. You'll probably want to, keep your bingo card open for all the opportunities of working each individual station.
Yeah, Steve said something about they're picking call signs based on what they're allowed, but it seems to me, from what I've seen, it's like if they're doing a true special event, the rules get pretty lax because I've seen some bizarre call signs. I don't know if the RSGB is, or the RSGB is just the amateur radio, like the ARRL. What's the
correct?
What's the FCC equivalent in Britain?
Ofcom.
Ofcom, that's right, Ofcom. Yeah, so Ofcom, I guess, doesn't like 100 in their call signs, but whatever. They allowed for a 4-letter suffix, so I don't know. Just let them do it. Anyway, that's all there was to that. So look for those call signs as they come up in the next little bit, sometime in April, and work them and get a certificate or something, or just feel accomplished.
Yeah, for sure. The next story,
really, really slow, people. It's really slow.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. And speaking of slow, here's a Signals Museum opens doors in Huntsville. The Signals Museum of Information Explosion held its grand opening on Saturday, March 1st. The museum is dedicated to highlighting communications throughout history. Signals is a communication technology museum located in Huntsville, Alabama. It provides a hands-on, immersive experience where guests can explore, interact, and learn about communication technologies throughout history. Visitors will leave the museum with more appreciation for the business leaders and inventors alike that have paved the way for the digital technologies we rely on today. Highlights and upcoming programs include visiting an AM radio station, event space situated within the museum's collection, a working ham radio shack, operational on-site radio tower, and this came to us from the Amateur Radio Daily. I was going to make something up there. Amateur Radio Daily, and also we have a link to the Signals Museum itself in the show notes.
Yep. All right. So sorry for all that fluffy content. There's just nothing out there. Amateur radio just goes on as it has for 100 years now, and nothing of note is happening. So
lots of contests and stuff like that, but we don't talk about those anymore.
No, because those are always going on. I mean, that's all we could talk about if we wanted to do that.
Yeah. We're just a contest show, right?
Yeah, let's not. I think that's been done already. All right, so let's move into some open source, which actually has some content we can talk about. There's always things happening in open source. So the first one is a new version of Wine 10.3 has been released. The Wine development release is now available for testing, which includes some new features and the usual assorted bug fixes to make running Windows games and apps on Linux even better. The usual assorted bug fixes. Well, at least they don't hold back and let people know that the software is free.
Yeah, clearly not bug free.
So some of the highlights of this release are clipboard support in the Wayland driver. Boo. Initial Vulkan video decoder support in Wine D3D, bundled compiler RT library for ARM builds, header fixes for Wine lib C++ support, and more progress on the Bluetooth driver. Well, at least there's progress being made. There's some big bug fixes noted for the likes of AIM Labs, OSU Bang, Osu Bang, Osu, Silver Chains, a fix for Unreal Engine games, Steam, and more. Hopefully sometime next month, or perhaps this is not us opining, this is someone else opining. Hopefully sometime next month, or perhaps the month after, we might see Proton 10 released to bring even more improvements for gaming on Linux platforms. And this came, as you might expect, from Gaming on Linux. Woot woot. There you go. More progress, fewer bugs until they find the new ones.
Yes, of course.
All right. So what's next?
I came across this article on How to Geek, and so this is all of their speechy, and I'm sure we'll have some comments afterwards. Windows has changed over the years. The title of the article is 5 Reasons Ubuntu is Not the Best Windows Replacement. Must be a shock headline, right? Windows has changed over the years, but there are certain things about it that people expect to be true. There is a taskbar at the bottom that displays your open apps and maybe a few of your pinned favorites. The start menu sits on the left of those icons. The system tray and clock are in the bottom right. This interface is so ubiquitous that Chromebooks function exactly the same way, as does the Samsung DeX interface that comes with many Samsung phones and tablets. Ubuntu doesn't. I mean, I would say that Ubuntu does it in quotes. Ubuntu apps are arranged along the left side, and they're talking about the default distribution here, along the left side of the screen instead of the bottom. There is no start menu. The app launcher looks more like a tablet than that of Windows PC. The clock is in the top center, the status icons appear in the top right, and don't call that area a system tray. In fact, you'll need to install an extension to make it function like one. For many of us, these changes are trivial. For people who like the muscle memory that they have built up with Windows, these changes will make Ubuntu feel like an uncomfortable place to land. And these were the 5 reasons that they stated that Ubuntu was not the best replacement for Windows. Ubuntu has an unfamiliar interface, which they've clearly outlined here. Your fate is still in corporate hands. And this is a stab in the back to Canonical. There is still some minor telemetry. Yes. Apps come in several different formats, and this was a topic that they were picking on the various packaging, snaps, flat packs, debs, etc. And there are Ubuntu specific bugs, and which is always interesting. And again, this article came from How to Geek, and I think it's probably not right in several ways, but mainly the UI can be changed, and Ubuntu comes in many flavors, as we all know, including Budgie, GNOME, KDE, Cinnamon, Mate, XFCE, etc., etc., etc. Those are just the ones that are in the flavors profile, where they're kind of sort of approved flavors, and then of course you can install whatever you want as your UI replacement. But I guess they're talking from the aspect of a brand new user, and I think most Windows specific users that are switching to Linux probably choose Linux Mint because it does seem more familiar, as opposed to Ubuntu, which the default installation has the Unity style desktop that many of us are well aware has been around for many years now with Ubuntu.
Yeah, that was the comment that I was going to make on this. Was when did we start talking about the huge kerfuffle that Unity created? Because Canonical thought they were going to create a desktop experience that was available and consistent across device platforms. Like it would work the same on your desktop as your tablet or phone.
Correct.
And this was when Canonical was ostensibly going to be putting out phone hardware and so on. And yeah, if you haven't figured out that the Ubuntu Unity interface is a little bit different by now, it's kind of old news. But the first thing I do if I'm going to run Ubuntu with GNOME with the standard, Unity-like interface is you just click on the icon bar on the left and move it to the bottom, and suddenly everything looks kind of normal again. So
it's close to normal, right?
Right. Not a super big deal. And if nothing else, just run Ubuntu Mate or something along those lines, and it'll just be exactly the same. Yeah, everybody figured out that Unity sucked real early on and created a way to get around it and still run Ubuntu. So
yeah, I've never been a fan. Some of the Ubuntu specific bugs they talk about are probably more along the lines of driver support for modern video cards and stuff like that. And these would be like bleeding edge video cards in which you need to have, a kernel greater than, 6.13 dot something, which not a lot of mainline LTS distributions have. In fact, I was debating whether to put this sort of stupid article or another article about how to get the latest NVIDIA driver loaded on your Pop! OS system, which requires, of course, upgrading your kernel and not running the mainline kernel that they ship with these LTS releases. But there were other complaints about Pop! OS being that they're also slightly behind all of the Ubuntu LTS switchovers, and then they don't do any of the point releases like Ubuntu does. So yeah, there's lots of contention out there in Ubuntu and Pop land and derivatives thereof.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest problem most people had in the past, at least with these distributions that had some deficit in the kernel department, was getting like proprietary or getting non-proprietary drivers for things like NVIDIA to work properly because they tended to be old or whatnot. But the like AMD and NVIDIA have made installing the proprietary drivers so easy now, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. You still need a modern kernel though, so you need a newer kernel than what ships with the LTS distros.
Right, but usually the package manager will take care of that for you if you install the correct version of your video driver. So, yeah,
it might be debatable on the NVIDIA one.
Well, I mean, LTS maybe, but if you're anywhere current, you should be okay. But
yeah, you'd have to switch out to like a Zen kernel or something like that is compiled against 6.13 or greater, 6.12. I think Ubuntu still uses 6.11 or something like that.
I don't even know. I don't know what I'm running anymore. I'm focused on Manjaro these days, and I know it's current. So
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, with that, we'll move on to the next topic, which is Android's. Well, a couple of Android topics here. Really is a light week. Android's native Linux terminal app. Google has launched a native Linux terminal app for Android, allowing users to run Debian in a virtual machine, primarily benefiting developers. Who's developing on a phone?
Good question.
Security professionals and those needing Linux-specific applications. Not that Android doesn't run on other things, but I mean, it's primarily a phone OS. So the app is currently accessible via developer options in the March 2025 Pixel feature drop, requiring manual activation and an initial download to configure the Linux environment. Isn't Android
Linux is Linux, yes.
Yeah, that was one of the things they said like way back when Google was putting out Android it's Linux.
Well, yeah, it gives you sort of a sandbox. Think of it as a subsystem for Linux on Linux.
Yeah, no, I know I'm being a little facetious here, but yeah. So you get a sandbox for your Linux on Linux. Yeah. Creating settings allow for disk resizing, port control, and partition recovery, with Google actively developing enhancements like hardware acceleration and a full graphical environment, which is eminently useful on your distribution. So
yeah. So what I think this came from Android Police.
Android Police.
So this would be very similar to, well, if you've ever had a Samsung phone, they have a thing called DeX, which if you plug your phone into a digital port on a computer, it becomes a desktop computer, which is really cool. So this is kind of good news that this is being baked into to the actual Android release, and we'll have tighter integration with that. So maybe someday soon in Android 16 or maybe 17, we'll see the ability to do that and turn your phone into a desktop computer when you need it, which, they're more than capable of performing all the tasks that you would probably run in Linux from your phone.
Yeah, very good. Well, I think I'll read this. Do you have anything about the topic after this next topic?
I have just basically what I went through with it, but I can talk about it, yeah.
All right, well, let me just read this next one then, and you can do that, because I really have nothing to say about the other one, other than the annoyance of that initial screen that you're going to comment about anyway. So.
Yes.
All right, so moving on to Linux and the Ham Shack topics. We only have one for tonight, but I thought this one was kind of interesting, and it has to do with Android as well. APRS Droid, which many people may know is an APRS client for Android, has been forked and new features added. Mike NA7Q has forked the APRS Droid project and added many new features. It allows reporting your position as well as sending and receiving messages and mapping and all the other things that APRS does. It also conveniently displays nearby stations as a list or on a map. Beyond the scope of the original application, NA7Q's version has many additional features, including a digipeater, direct or full. It does two-way eye gating. So it's amazing these features aren't in the original thing, because You'd think they would be. It has an option to send packets via RF and APRS-IS, APRSIS, or RF only while iGating. Messaging tweaks. Reset brain, push button. Okay. Messaging tweaks for advanced users, radio control for Vero, BTEC, and radio oddities. I assume those are those crossover phone radio thingies, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. And others. Offline maps with MB tiles. Offline maps with MapsForge V3, which is a new feature. Mic E compression, Mic E statuses, including emergency. Standard compression, Bluetooth low energy or BLE support. Digirig support, metric and imperial units. Disabling hardware acceleration. Why would you do that? I don't know. Added speed and course to the station viewer. Option to disable message IDs. Hublog can sort by distance or newest stations, and other under-the-hood changes. The roadmap on the project indicates that many additional features and fixes are planned. More information about the project and where to get it are linked in the show notes, including a couple of videos where some of the guys we know in the ham radio community, including KM4ACK, actually do videos and go in-depth into the new version of APRS Droid, so you can check those out.
Yeah, that's cool. I wonder if this new project will be $4.95 like the other one was.
I don't know. I didn't see anything about cost, and I didn't bother. I don't have my Android phone handy, so I didn't go to the App Store.
Yeah, I think the App Store is still the original version, so it's not the forked version. I don't see one that's specifically for this specific project. So maybe we'll see it in the future.
Well, I hope so. Maybe it's available via like a test, or I assume there's like a test suite for Android like there is for iPhone. So
yeah, or they push an APK out in their releases. Tags.
Yeah, I think the download was a link to an APK. So
oh, cool. I'll check that out and see if it installs. Cool. Well, the next topic is this fun little distribution called Makulu Lindos. Makulu Lindos. It just sounds funny to say. Let's see. What? Let me find some copy here. I can just talk about this. So, Makulu Linux Lindos is built on our new hybrid 2023 base and designed on a modified Cinnamon framework. So yeah, it runs a Cinnamon desktop. Designed to make the user transition from Windows to Linux easier and more comfortable while still retaining its Linux roots has been quite a challenge, and one we focused heavily on two fronts. This is poorly written, so definitely not a native speaker wrote this. Keep a familiar Windows look, but push the Linux experience. With all the new GUIs and features that make a user experience easier, using the new Lindos is a breeze and feels very comfortable. So, yeah. There's more in here. You can check out the website, and we'll have it linked in the show notes because I noticed we don't have the link or that copy I just read. I just pulled that right off their website. So I downloaded the ISO image, and I spun it up here on a VM just to take a look at it. The live ISO, if your sound system works, will scare you because a scary video plays with a very robotic voice. And it took me a few minutes to figure out how to stop it. Because it was full screen with no controls and stuff like that. But anyway, once you get past that, you get the normal, it's kind of Ubuntu style installer. I forget which one that's called, but it has a decent UI interface. So it is based on Cinnamon. So if you've ever not used Cinnamon, it's kind of Windows-esque, kind of Linux Mint-esque type look. You have your start menu at the bottom with all your icons and stuff like that down at the bottom, and your status bars down at the bottom. So a mixture of a dock and stuff like that. It has Conky running, so it has some UI flair where it shows some active stuff running, like your top processes, your system information, and everything else like that. So this thing sits on top of a Debian base. I believe it's based on Debian testing, if I remember correctly. So all of your normal Debian sources and stuff like that will be in there among about 50 others. So that was the first thing when both I think you and I did the apt update. We were like, oh, wow, that's a lot of sources in the source list. So it does take a while to get everything downloaded and then updated. I think the image said it was from yesterday, and it still did about 1,000 packages or something like that. Yeah, maybe that's exaggerating, but let's say 300 packages to update. And then I quickly installed, just for giggles, I quickly installed the ham radio pure blend stuff. All that installed quite well. I mean, we've got WSJTX running on here, 2.7.0, all the normal things that you would see in that, chirp, CQR log, cubic SDR, Qt SDR, direwolf, and stuff like that. So I think this could be somewhat usable. There's some other interesting things that they have here. This seems to be more of a focused on AI and using AI connections. So they have like hot links down here at the bottom for ChatGPT, DeepSeek, their own AI toolbox, which they call the Electra AI toolbox, which if I go into that, they have a bunch of terminal-based stuff, an AI calculator, AI diagnostics, an image generator, AI vision, AI podcast. Oh, cool. We can have them do our podcast for us. A bunch of stuff in here that, it's probably worth some deeper investigating. I don't know. I don't think I would ever actually use this for anything beyond just taking a trip in a VM with it. The default browser is Chromium, if that makes anybody happy or sad or anything else like that. They do have Collabora Office installed by default. It's a pretty fat image right now. I think it was like 5.6 gigs. So there's a lot of stuff already in the image. And yeah, I'm not, like I said, I don't have a lot of information on the source of everything here, including who made it and stuff like that. It is interesting. It is interesting for sure. Could it be used for ham radio? Yeah, sure. Why not? It's Debian based. If you can get a Debian computer or Ubuntu running, you can definitely use this to do that as well. And if you're interested in weird, quirky setups, this definitely fits the bill. It's got the wobbly windows. With Cinnamon, you can grab the little window and kind of shake it on your desktop, and it wobbles. So it has all those CompViz features that can be present in those relatable systems. I don't know if I'd be ready to give it an LHS score, but it's definitely a 4.0 plus, because it can be used quite easily and quickly. You can get it up and running probably within probably an hour. I got mine running while we were just chatting earlier, so it didn't take much effort to get to this point. I did see some weird stuff when I did the ham radio pure blend stuff. I did notice it pulled out Pipewire, which is slightly concerning, probably just to install Pulse directly. So there's probably a little bit of inconsistencies with how most modern systems handle that. I'm not sure if you're on a Debian-based system, if Pipewire gets ripped out and stuff like that when you do the ham radio pure blend, because I don't run a pure Debian system to actually see that. But that might be a concern for some people, but Pulse works fine as well. It's just these days everything's gone to Pipewire. So, but anyway, if you want something fun to look at and play around with, this seems kind of interesting. Makulu Linux Lindos is something to look at.
All right, I really don't have anything to add because I just got a quick look at desktop and saw that it was basically Debian underneath, and then all of the package management and everything, other than the fact that they just had a bunch of add-on repos, sort of all work the same, and it seemed reasonably familiar on the front end. The UI was, certainly navigable even for a novice user. So, yeah, I'd say because of its base, and if you wanted to try something a little different and get all those quirky AI features on top of your ham shack, applications, might be worth checking out, or maybe just giving a test run and kicking the tires in a VM and see what it's like. So that's pretty much all I had on that.
Cool.
All right. Well, that brings us down to the end of our topics for tonight. Unfortunately, it's just kind of a light news week, so apologies for that. But hopefully there was a little something here for everybody, and we want to thank you for tuning in and listening. And we also hope that if you have the opportunity, you can help support us in the financials over on Patreon, PayPal, buying some merch, or subscribing on YouTube. I looked today right before the show. We have 999 subscribers. So who's going to be the big 1K? That's what we need to know. Anyway, I've been a little bit lax in uploading stuff to the different social media sites anyway, and I'm not sure where you are in uploading to YouTube. So maybe a couple of videos will get us over that 1,000 mark, which would be great, considering we're not even really on YouTube other than just simulcasting the show. And I know we keep saying we're going to put out new YouTube content, and hopefully that actually happens someday. But with that, let's go ahead and go ahead.
No, I was just, that sounds good, sir. I didn't know if you were waiting for me to respond. As I'm downloading the APK for this APRS droid.
Fair enough. Well, maybe that's worth a deep dive too. So our next episode, of course, will be a weekender. So hopefully you'll tune in for that. We'll pick a random topic to discuss and then talk about hedonism, and that will be in a week's time. So we hope you join us. And before we get out of here, we'll go through our subscribers and supporters who joined us on social media this last week. Well, actually 2 weeks because I didn't do it last week. On Facebook, we have Mike Sullivan. On Mastodon, we have Bill VE7WYC. On YouTube, we have Roy KW4G, Mark Trevian, and Bionicle55. On Discord, we had Chris K4KNA, KQ4SQF Mark, Jim P K4INC, Breeze, Chica KD4WOV Tom, and Al Maliki. On Blue Sky, we had Ham2K join us. No one on the mailing list, and tonight, the only person who decided to join us while he was just finishing up dinner with his salad, steak, and spaghetti was Steve, KJ5T. So thanks, Steve, for joining us tonight. And thanks to everybody who's a supporter of the show, whether you're just a listener or a financial contributor. We appreciate each and every one of you. And we hope you have a great week, and we'll tune in for our weekender the next time around. And with that, we'll go ahead and get out of here and let you get back to whatever it was you were doing. This has been episode number 574 of Linux in the Ham Shack. And for the on assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954777469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.